Welcome to U.S. Hemp TV. I'm Jonathan Miller, the General Counsel of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by State Senator Lena Taylor of Wisconsin, who has been a real champion for hemp in the Badger State. Welcome to U.S. Hemp TV, Senator Taylor.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Why hemp? What brought you to this, of all issues, to take such a leadership role in Wisconsin?
It's funny, I fell upon hemp very candidly by accident. I was participating with another group and we were in DC lobbying, and I was learning about the importance of agriculture. And one of the things that we ended up doing was going to talk with some individuals about, just what kind of agricultural opportunities exist. And so we happened to meet a legislator who literally was like over the top in DC with hemp. He had hemp bars in his office. He was talking about what should happen, and then ultimately was a champion in getting something included in the 2014 Farm Bill. And it was from learning about what cannabis was, both cannabis hemp and cannabis marijuana, how they were basically of the same family, and all of the possibilities that existed in hemp. It blew my mind. And when I learned that in the 2014 Farm Bill, you can move in this direction and cannabis hemp can be legal and you can do all of these different things, I began to research and found, oh my goodness, what? Wisconsin was a leader in hemp? What? We were in the top states in hemp. So it just began to snowball. So from one trip about agriculture, one congressperson who cared about the issue of hemp, one hemp bar from his office, I began to learn all of the history and the connection, good and bad, that Wisconsin had to hemp, and to, very candidly, the criminalization of the cannabis plant.
Who was the member of Congress?
Kentucky member of Congress, and so I apologize that I don't remember his name at the time, but he was from Kentucky.
Was it Thomas Massey by any chance?
It might have been. It was about 2012, 2013. So I have to go back and look and see who it was. And so I should, because I really owe him so much.
Yeah, no, my guess it was Thomas. He was the lead sponsor of our hemp legislation back then.
It was him. Yeah.
And what's interesting is you and I were talking before this interview about the bipartisanship nature. He is as far right wing a Republican you can get.
Yes.
And he will work with some of the most liberal members of Congress. Congressman Pocan and Congressman Kind are both big supporters of hemp in Wisconsin, and so is Congressman Grothman, who's conservative. So it really is quite a bipartisan issue.
I've had an opportunity, except for Congressman Kind, to serve with both Grothman and with Pocan. As a matter of fact, some of the only hearings in our state that dealt, until we did do the hemp legislation that I did in a bipartisan nature with my colleague, Senator Teston, Pocan and I had done some of the only hearings that happened in the Capitol around cannabis marijuana at the time, and making the connection really to the criminal justice system, the health system, and the role that cannabis can play, both for mental health as well as for pain relief, as well as how it really overwhelms our criminal justice system with costs. And so anyway, and Grothman is probably one of my former colleagues, who got on me the most about penalty enhancers. He would be with me, and if by any chance I ever got on a bill that had major penalty enhancers, it was Senator Grothman who would say, "What are you doing on that bill?" And so both of them understanding the importance agriculture has played in our state. I think many of us have not known the history that hemp played in our state, but There's no question that when Senator Teston showed an interest to do work so that we could ratify what the federal government had given us so that we could do work in Wisconsin, it was truly a no-brainer for us to work together. But I will say that there's still much work that we
Yeah.
need to do in order for that industry to be more robust.
So let's talk about that. Talk about where you've gotten Wisconsin in terms of hemp, and where what are your next steps? What are your next priorities as a legislator?
Well, one of the things that we basically have done is we've made it possible for individuals to be able to get licenses at a pretty nominal amount, only really a few $100s, and you're not paying much even if you're being a producer. And so those things alone provide access to anyone to do it. But I think people often don't realize how much work it is to be the wear all the hats as a farmer does. And so I think that we could have done a better job, and where we still are, I think, is growing um, our people on the possibilities of hemp, and growing ourselves as legislators on what really in what ways can we help those businesses in order to be successful. We've had now, a couple of seasons where we have had individuals grow. We've had quite a few, like a huge number of individuals get licenses, but not produce in that same way. I will say that I don't believe that we are leading in research in the way that we could. And I think trying to create better packages for our universities and our technical colleges to be a part of that pipeline of preparation of our citizens to work in the industry, I think we also could grow in that area. And then lastly, I really don't believe that all of my colleagues understand. So as a result, I don't know that we have our communities, whether it's law enforcement, our prosecutors, our media. Um, I think that that level of awareness of cannabis and its hemp and marijuana children, so to say, and understanding the difference between the two, and understanding really the role in pain management, in inflammation control, other medical benefits. I really believe that we have to do a better job across the board, because we have individuals right now who are even talking about maybe walking us back with smokable um, uh, hemp. And I think people don't realize that there are just some things that are triggered through the smokable version versus not. And that regardless, the THC level is at a place that this is not individuals using it to get high or something like that. And so that disconnect um, from the capital to the ground is really a place that I'm wishing for us to do a much better job of creating that type of education.
So we were talking before we started our interview about the challenges of uh, marijuana legalization and kind of encroaching on hemp. When we first fought for hemp legalization, our whole message was keeping the two subjects separate. Now, it's looking, there certainly is a national trend for marijuana legalization. And how do you feel that that's going to affect the hemp industry?
I find that it has harmed the hemp industry in some ways because of the disconnect in people's minds, or because people have wanted to disconnect them so that people don't quite realize that some of the things that individuals will learn in the hemp industry can help to better prepare people to go into the cannabis marijuana industry if they so choose. But the other piece that I think is really a shame, a crying shame, is that people don't understand that the hemp industry really provides so much more possibility than the cannabis marijuana industry. A perfect example is I'm looking at your beautiful background, And, you know, whether it is the paper that would be in books, or whether it is the hats and the material for the hats, or whether it is the wood for the wood shelf, all of those things, or the something over there that's black that looks plastic, I think it's a printer. All of those things can be um, items that can be made from hemp. And I think often people don't make those connections. And now we have some companies that are catching, like getting aboard, and they're trying to get ahead and hire individuals who can help them to be in that research end. And as a state that has such a long history with the paper industry, I wish that we would do more incentive to encourage the paper industry to get ahead of this issue. It was the paper industry that actually was part of our history that helped us to squash the cannabis hemp industry years ago in Wisconsin, because they were concerned what that would, you know, what that would do, because back then the cost was not, it was not such that it was more lucrative to do it through trees. So my issue today is, what are we doing different to help to create that level of education, that cross education across not only states, but between hemp and marijuana industry. They're similar. And so I believe that it can be helpful. But what I'm going to end with, it's been harmful in that I believe that people have ran to the cannabis marijuana industry and thinking it is it's probably not a good way to say it, but their savior, so to say, you know, because it does generate a lot of revenue. There's no question about that. It's different if you're going into a industry that is already proven, for example, you know, how it can be useful and successful, versus hemp. We have to recreate it all because it was stopped in America. And so it's starting it all over. So the negative is that states have spent a lot of time and energy on figuring out what to do with cannabis marijuana. And as a result, cannabis hemp is treated like the stepchild. And so I would say the states that embrace being a leader in that area might find themselves maybe ahead of the game. And that's, you know, that's the dilemma that I will say that I have as a legislator, trying to, you know, you can't do it all, you know, trying to have the energy to encourage us to move towards legalization, or do I spend my energy trying to educate everyone on the possibilities, on the apprenticeships that exist in agriculture and can exist in the hemp industry, the possibilities in vertical farming that the hemp industry can do, the innovation that might be able to exist in taking hemp to, you know, create a bottle, or taking hemp to create the plastics or products that make our phones, whatever that may be. That research, you've got to spend the energy to get your state in that, you know, in that direction. And so that's the negative. I think that a lot of people are only wanting to invest in the fast money, so to say, of cannabis marijuana, and not the long-term, dependable, possibilities that exist in the hemp industry.
Oh, those are great points. You're talking about history. We're in the middle of Black History Month, and hemp has a really sordid history when it comes to race. Here in Kentucky, the hemp industry was built on the backs of enslaved Americans. And since then, you know, in the intervening century, decades, we've seen systemic racism really impact farmers of color all over the country. How do you see this issue, and how are you addressing this in Wisconsin? And you know, what do you think we ought to look at from a national level in terms of issues like equity and justice in our industry?
I think you hit it out of the park. You know, it really has historically created, you know, some real mixed emotions for people. Agriculture, period, especially for, Black African Americans. Um, Agriculture was used for the master, in situations because African Americans were forced immigrants, and were enslaved individuals. So, with that, many people have created a disconnect, right, with agriculture that has prevented, I would argue, people of color from wanting to be engaged in agriculture in the way that historically we have before ever coming to America. Agriculture has always been a robust portion of what, whether it was on the continent of Africa or here, it's been a robust part of who we are, right? So that disconnect after slavery has definitely, I would say, the road has widened over the time, and now you have generations that are completely disconnected. People who came from the South and came north, for example. They may have had a garden, but that next generation may not have, and then that other generation may not have, and now the generation that's existing, they go to the store and they may not even realize that potato, is where their French fries come from. So I say that to say it's difficult then to have people in an industry that requires them to be engaged in an industry that they have a negative relationship with in their historical experience. So I've really found it exciting to see the new growth in appreciation for agriculture, for its self-sustainability that it provides, for the empowerment that it provides. And I've used it in that fashion to speak about before. The master used it to master your, to reign over you, but now you can use agriculture to master your own destiny, and to speak about how working in the soil has also, now research is showing, is healing, and that it also helps to deal with stress, and it helps to deal with so much more. So I say that to say, before I can get to encouraging people to be in the industry, I've had to deal with those stigmas, those issues. And I'm excited to report that I see the growth. Now, granted, it's almost been a decade of saying those things, but I see the growth. Now, to the farmers who never left, and the Black farmers who've never left and to this day are still challenged with being able to hold on to their land, to get the support and the respect that they deserve, and the financial settlements and payments that are due them, those issues are still very prevalent. And I wish that I could say that I have all the answers to that. I can't say that I do, but in the end, they need equity, period. They need to be, and we can't expect better if we don't do better. And so I will say, supporting Black farmers, creating more Black farmers, that is crucial. And so that's why I love what my county does here in Milwaukee. They have land that they make available for anyone to use, right? Even at a very, it's not at a large cost, it's at a very low cost, in our county. That is helping. Talking with my school district and getting them to have a urban agriculture curriculum and strategy so that we can grow Black farmers is something that I find is very important. And then lastly, that interconnection with, whether it is my universities or whether it's HBCUs, for individuals to be able to go to college and to go and to major in agriculture, because that's the only way that they're going to get in this industry, is to even know what the pieces of an agriculture industry are. So historically, it is it's hard to make people reconnect to agriculture. it has been a long process. I'll speak for myself, to get any movement, but it is rewarding and refreshing when you're seeing individuals who have gone into the industry and that they're being successful at it. I know that in particular, there are some people here in Wisconsin that I, very early on in my journey in agriculture and in hemp, and in cannabis, marijuana, um, talking with them and learning and sharing and making those connections to see those individuals grow in the process, in their business. That is so rewarding. But there's few. Can I just say that? It's few and far between, and their growth is significantly different than the growth of individuals that don't look like me. So, no, all the answers are not here. No, we're not at perfect, or maybe not even fully at better. But I will say that I see movement, and yeah, and I see the hard interconnection to race and to our history.
No, that's great. Our U.S. Hemp Roundtable, when we first started several years ago, it was a bunch of white guys. Now we just elected a group of officers that's about half female, about 40% people of color, and we've still got work to go, but the movement, you're right, is in the right direction. And
yeah, but you guys should be commended for that alone, because to have 40% people of color, to have a major portion of women in leadership, it's better than we're doing in government. It's better than a lot of industries are doing. And sure, with the amount of straight, I'm going to call it oppression, that has happened for people of color by the use of cannabis. Um, I want to see better numbers. I want to see better pathways for people to be entrepreneurs, and for people to not have the same stigmas, convictions, or whatever else it is on them because of those types of previous ways that we've treated, cannabis. Until we get there, we've not arrived. But, congratulations on the 40%, right?
Well, just one final question. We have a lot of hemp supporters across the country who are watching this, who want to figure out the best way that they can get active to support the industry. And some might choose to be farmers, others might choose political action. These days, politics is so disdained and so hated by some. But you offer any words of encouragement on folks out there who want to have their voices heard and what they should be doing?
Yes. So the first thing I want to say is I know that it can be discouraging, especially when you can see how divided, how partisan things can sometimes be. I will say that I believe that this is an area where you have the possibilities to help to empower people, to help to create wealth and health in communities. But it does require that we have to educate our electeds. So I encourage you to be a part of helping in Wisconsin to educate legislators on both sides of the aisle. Because I want to be honest, I even had legislators on the Democratic side of the aisle that were very cautious to join on legislation to move hemp forward. So reach out and share your story, especially your journey that you've taken, maybe even on being educated on hemp, because you may think it won't matter, but it might actually help to move someone, whether it is someone who's used it for inflammation or for whatever health issues. So one, talking, sharing, that's one. The second thing that I really think is my plea to people out there who want to invest, who want to be a part of trailblazing different ideas in hemp. Don't be afraid to find out what states have available for you to do that. And if you don't know, reach out to friends in those different states. And if you don't have any, reach out to legislators that are on those ag committees, because we can't blaze the trail in hemp if we don't go to the places that have created the legislation and the pathways to do it. if we don't go and do that. And you may have to go to those states because maybe they're a little behind in their depth of knowledge or in their ability to help move their industry. Don't be afraid, right? To be that beacon, that trailblazer to help educate other places. And then I'll end with this. You know, it takes money to make money. And so one of the things I hope that you will do is to remember that your time, your skills, your dollars, all of those things matter in helping to build this industry. This group of individuals that are a part of this roundtable, it's not just for this state or that state, it's for the nation. We are rebuilding a pipeline for hemp in the nation. And so I hope that you will give of your time and your energy and share and help so that in places like my state, I'm just going to be very candid, where, we may not see where we should do something different. It's important for you to know that you are part of the trailblazers to help share your knowledge and share your value.
Well, that's a great note to end on. I want to thank State Senator Lena Taylor for your inspiring words and most importantly for your incredible actions on behalf of hemp, both in the past and what we know is going to come in the future. So thanks so much for joining us on US Hemp TV.
Thank you. I look forward to joining you again.